Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the next session for today with a focus on construction, infrastructure, mining and local government. For those of you who I don't know, haven't met before, my name is Mac Irvine and I'm an investment director at the CEFC, or the Clean Energy Finance Corporation, with a focus of investments in the waste and bioenergy sector. For anyone who's not familiar with the CEFC, we're essentially the Australian Commonwealth Government-owned $10 billion green investment bank with a focus of investing across what we call the green economy in Australia, effectively looking at decarbonisation. So we're the people with the money at the end of the day, so typically pretty friendly people. I want to make a big sort of special thanks to Shahana and the Bioenergy Australia team for putting the event on today. It's really nice to see so many familiar faces and new faces as well, or in person, shaking hands, not wearing masks, so the world's getting back to some form of normality, which is great to see. It's very easy for most of us to sort of turn up here today and you know, be part of a great event, but obviously again to Shahana and her team for putting it on, a lot of hours behind the scenes putting it all together. I've got the privilege today of introducing Simon Roycroft, who will be chairing the event today. So Simon is the Future Fuels Manager at Refueling Solutions. He's also the chair of the Cleaner Fuels Alliance at Bioenergy Australia. He's a passionate supporter of renewable fuels and has supported and assisted many government and corporate entities successfully decarbonising their liquid fuels. So I'd like to now make the introduction to Simon and welcome him to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Mac, and may I just say, as the holder of the funds, how good you're looking today. And it's not just me saying that. All right. So good morning and welcome to the second session. The first one certainly was highly entertaining and very insightful, and a couple of comments I would make is the tipping book has now opened. There will be a competition between the next two refineries that we're talking about, so FEA with Adrian and Jennifer versus Mike at Oceana Biofuels. So I'll be keen to see who wins. So. And secondly, we're also involved with Lisa Blair in her fantastic voyage and inspirational journey, and we, in conjunction with Biodiesel Industries, supplied the B100. And as much as she said that she trusted the B100, as we all do, I can assure you every day I was looking at her little map to see where she was to make sure that boat was still showing, because as we do know, B100 can be a little bit temperamental in the cold weather. But anyway, so folks, I think there's something very satisfying and I feel very fortunate to be able to chair this diverse and inspiring session. It is genuinely a truly exciting time to be in the bioenergy space, and I certainly feel that's been reflected in what's been discussed this morning. In front of me sits agents of change, okay, which is fantastic. We have the genuine ability to do things. So, as we know, change can start in an instant, and we all have the power, if not the responsibility, to make that difference. Shortly, you will hear from some very remarkable people in this space who have committed to this change, to making a difference not just at an individual level, but more compelling, that they are a catalyst for change within their organisation and the communities that they operate. And this is, despite, I guess, the adversity that they've faced. There's certainly been some challenges, and I think it was mentioned by one person about this Groundhog Day. It's certainly, for us who've been in the industry for a while, I think it was Heather, we've certainly had a lot of stop-start, but I certainly feel that now we are at a position where we're going to go from strength to strength. But the most exciting thing about all of this, despite this adversity and the challenge, whether it be from government or the establishment, this change is being industry-driven. And that is extremely exciting for me, speaking with like-minded people to do what we believe is the right thing right now. So I guess from that point of view, I'd like to express my genuine appreciation and gratefulness to all the participants today, and I'll run through that in a second, to take time out of their busy schedule and to share their amazing journeys as they've, the achievements that they've had. So we'll be hearing from a number of people. Firstly, from Lease will be Abigail Haywood. So she has two roles, Sustainability Manager for Queensland and the Northern Territory, and she's also the National Sustainability Coordinator for Building. and her talk today will be transitioning to a fossil-free construction. After that, actually we've had one COVID influenza A fatality, so that's so Scania unfortunately won't be presenting today, but the next one will be a virtual presentation by the Executive Chairman of Q Mines, which will be Andrew Sparke, and he'll be looking at decarbonising mining operations, which is certainly a hard to decarbonise space, and will be very interesting to see what opportunities exist there. Next we have Bundaberg Council, and we've got Ben Artup, Executive Director, Strategic Projects and Economic Development, and he'll be looking at Bundaberg's Biohub. Followed from that, we'll have Adrian Cook from Carnarvon Energy, and he's the Managing Director, and looking at Carnarvon Energy's energy or transition vision. We then have Simon Marr from Marr Contracting. They are in the industry known as the men from Mars, and that Simon's the Managing Director and transitioning. He'll be looking at transitioning to renewable diesel HVO 100. So that's quite a step change in the market to be having renewable diesel available. The final speaker today will be from Coates, which is Stephen Lincoln. He's the Group Manager, Equipment, Compliance and Product Development. And he'll be looking at net zero by 2040 and supporting the built environment in decarbonisation. But first, I'd just like to make a few observations. One of the main reasons I can stand here today, and certainly the speakers can be here, is because of, I guess, the vision and the commitment that we've had from a lot of people in this industry. And certainly, whilst I deal a lot in the B100 space, working with Paul Hetherington and the team at Ecotech, Peter Chomley from Biodiesel, and Ian Baker, who's unfortunately unable to make it today. It's their commitment, plus what we're also seeing in the ethanol market through Manildra and Wilmar, to be able to assist and facilitate these transitions. And it has been an incredibly rocky road for all these players over the years. So certainly from our perspective, with more to come, it's exciting times, and glad you guys have been able to hang in there. One thing I'll note is change is good, and it's certainly been overdue from I guess this sector's perspective. And I was actually at Fairfield Council a couple of weeks ago and got a lovely picture of our new Energy Minister from a couple of years ago, so I'm sure he hasn't changed that much actually, but certainly very encouraging to hear what he had to say today and where we're headed. So I thought I'd share with you some of my thoughts in terms of why renewable fuels or low carbon liquid fuels. So without going through all the points, there is no doubt from the perspective these aspirational goals of hydrogen and EV will have their role and their time and their place. But certainly the conversations we've had with OEMs and end users, these things, particularly in these hard to decarbonise sectors, are not going to be as quick and as expedient and cost effective as we'd like. So we see a tremendous opportunity where we are at the moment to be able to work with the technologies of renewable fuels to provide immediate solutions. And I think that's important about the choice. People have this choice now through low carbon liquid fuels, renewable fuels, to be able to decide on their terms how they wish to decarbonise. People aren't going to be forced into a particular direction and have to do an EV or a hydrogen. They can actually work in a space that has capacity to work within existing refuelling infrastructure and make an immediate difference right here and right now. And that gets to the incumbency. We already have this infrastructure in place, and we have an industry that is continuing to develop and grow from strength to strength. And the other thing I'd say from a diesel perspective, which we haven't talked about, whilst we're doing the great thing in reducing carbon emissions, one of the things is diesel is a carcinogen and has been classified as that since 2012. So there are a lot of not just environmental but also health benefits available to everyone from moving to renewable fuels. I was in the States earlier in the year and had the pleasure of attending the National Biodiesel Conference. And one of the things, and I actually hadn't made the sort of direct connection, but the comment that I obviously here in terms of, and it goes to the value of renewable fuels in not just Australia but globally, is the amount of the reduction and when it happens. And I think when you look at the equation, the ability for renewable fuels to make a difference today, and a meaningful difference, and reduce the amount of carbon that is actually available in the atmosphere, given that the time value of carbon, as I said, is critical, and the next decades that we have in terms of how we're able to moderate, manage or reduce the amount of carbon. So it can't be underestimated. What we do today is material and critical. So one last thought, and this is probably a personal perspective from my point of view. There is a custodian or a real, I guess, responsibility on us as people who can influence or make decisions to be able to hand over the earth in at least the same and hopefully a better state than what we actually have, I guess, in a better state than we were actually handed it ourselves. So from that point, one of the things that's become very important to me during my own career, certainly working through some bigger corporates and then more recently in the refueling industry, has been this notion of legacy and what is it that we can do to be able to make a difference. For me, that legacy has been quite an easy one, and it gets back to the fact that I'm a father of 4. This is my youngest daughter, and her name's Evie, and obviously some pivotal moments, I guess, in her life was this year. She started school for the first time and lost her first tooth, and today she's 5. I guess in 2050, and as was mentioned earlier on, those next 28 years are going to fly by. And I guess we have to look at, well, what is it, what will her world look like, and my grandchildren's world look like at that time, and did we do enough today to make sure that we maintained a similar level of existence or relationship with the environment? So I guess from that point of view, I'm very much about why I'm driven to do what I do. It's because we have the opportunity to have a legacy that can outlive what we've been able to achieve in our own lifetime. And I guess that challenge comes from me is that all of us have that capability and responsibility to make that difference that can actually deliver meaningful outcomes for the future. So on that note, I thank you very much for the opportunity to introduce the session, and I'd like to call upon Abigail to talk about her decarbonisation experiences. Thank you.
Good morning. Have I gone the wrong way?
Construction sites are major sources of emissions that can lead to environmental and public health impacts. Exploring opportunities to transition to zero-emission construction sites is important not only for achieving environmental targets, but in the process can also deliver a number of other benefits, such as reduced pollution, lower operating costs, increased efficiencies across fuel and energy, and utilisation of locally produced renewable energy.
Lease is committed to climate action, and we've made it our mission to achieve absolute zero emissions by 2040. This means zero use of fossil fuels in construction. But how quickly can we electrify construction machinery, and what alternative fuels are viable? With the help of researchers from the University of Queensland, we've learned battery equipment is cheaper when we look at lifetime costs. And we know electric, backed by renewable diesel, offers the clearest pathway to fossil fuel-free construction. But we've also learnt that decarbonising construction will be challenging. 40% of our construction machinery and equipment can be electric by 2030, and this can grow to 60% by 2040. But our hard-to-abate sector will need supportive policy and financing to step up the pace. Lease has a clear action plan to create fossil fuel-free construction sites, but this, like many decarbonisation challenges, can only be solved systemically. The road to absolute zero is one we must take together. Just to set the scene. So before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the land where we meet today, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and also thank you BioEnergy Australia for the opportunity to share our work today. In 2020, we set our Mission Zero targets to be net zero by 2025 and absolute zero by 2040 for all three scopes. Our industry contributes around 23% of global carbon emissions, and roughly 5.5% of those emissions are directly related to the combustion of fossil fuels to power machinery and equipment. For us at Lease, this is mainly diesel. So working with our partners at University of Queensland, we've honed in on these emissions from construction, which is the focus of the research that I'm presenting today. Together with UQ, our supply chain partners and operations teams, we explored all the options for decarbonising construction and how they would apply to our sites. We explored a range of machinery and equipment technologies, as well as the energy sources associated with them. Importantly, the researchers confirmed that construction is a hard-to-abate sector. This refers to any sector for which decarbonisation is not straightforward because it either lacks technology or remains cost-prohibitive. We've learnt that technology to decarbonise construction sites is not extensively available and is unlikely to be until after 2040. Based on what we know today, the most promising decarbonisation options that emerged are electrification and renewable diesel. Electrification is our preferred option because manufacturers are already starting to electrify their machinery. The supply of electricity is national, it has increased energy efficiency compared with mineral diesel, and is zero emission when electricity is sourced from renewable sources. Renewable diesel is our preferred option where electrification is not possible because it's fossil fuel free, has high carbon emission savings, can directly substitute mineral diesel, and it enables machinery to live out its working life. During this process, we determined that whilst hydrogen provides opportunities for decarbonising other sectors, we found it would not be suitable for our construction sites. This includes a lack of model availability, space constraints for on-site storage, custom infrastructure and safe storage on site will be required to use it, and also green hydrogen is a long way off. So what's our plan? Well, we're going to prioritise and advocate for electrification. We're going to advocate for renewable diesel, and we're going to use biodiesel now and renewable diesel as soon as we can. So we've mapped out our strategy to 2040 for categories of machinery and equipment. There's a lot of detail here, but I encourage you to look at the report for the more details. So this represents today where we have electric equipment and machinery that is available, whilst most is mineral diesel and some biodiesel use where available. Then as we transition to 2025, I affectionately call this the messy middle, where we've got a bit of everything. We have more electric equipment becoming available from OEMs. We have renewable diesel coming online, so hurry up, Figan Oceana. We also have biodiesel where available we're using with the residual on mineral diesel. So it's going to be a bit of everything in 2025. I feel like a weather forecaster. Then in 2030, we're expecting this to simplify as more electric options are available. And this renewable diesel is predicted to be available nationally. So UQ have projected that 40% of construction machinery and equipment by energy use can be replaced by electric by 2030. Although as a hard-to-abate sector, this does come with a high degree of uncertainty. So by 2040, we're expecting 60% of our machinery and equipment by energy use to be electric, as again, more electric models become available, with the balance being met by renewable diesel. We have begun our journey. Caboolture Hospital is already using 20% biodiesel in 2 generators powering construction activities, and thank you to the Biofutures team for their support on this initiative. Sydney Metro Martin Place is already using B20 in 2 cranes. Our European friends last year released an alternative fuels policy, and as of January this year, our UK business is now fossil fuel free. And here in Australia, we're going to give it a go. So we've started on One Sydney Harbour R3 in Sydney, and this will be our demonstration fossil fuel free project. So how do we get there? A lot of common themes to the sessions that have already been discussed. Government policies and Government policies and targets are needed to send critical market signals. We need financial support that invests in refineries so that we can get the supply we need. We need to upgrade the existing grid to support electrified construction sites. And we need advocacy for the acceleration of electrification and renewable diesel. And we need training to meet these skill gaps. So there's a lot of information. Please read our report. There's also 2 other reports that University of Queensland have put together. One's a database, no report. That's all the supporting research that we incorporated. So we hope by sharing these insights with you and the information that we've uncovered, that this will help our industry move further, faster. Thank you.
Great. All right, look, hi everyone. My name's Andrew Sparke and I'm the Executive Chairman of a listed company called Q Mines Limited with the ticket code QML. So we're a relatively new business, only listed on the ASX in May of last year. But as you'll see today, we're really leading the mining and the resources industry in terms of how to roll out these ESG initiatives today. And I'll say before we even start that we're very proud to say that we're one of only 3 ASX listed resources companies that's certified carbon neutral under the climate active certification, which is a great achievement for our business and one that we've been working on for a long time. So look, thanks very much for having me today, and thanks very much to the conference organisers. Today I'm going to talk a bit more about the practical steps that we're taking, the things we're doing on the ground, not the things we're talking about, the things that we're doing right now. And I think you'll see through the presentation that we have a slightly different view on the whole ESG initiatives, that they can be done today and they can be done relatively cost effectively. So although we're a smaller business, we think that with real leadership and real foresight and forward planning, a lot of these initiatives can be rolled out a lot quicker than most would have you believe. So we'll get into that shortly. So quick overview on our business. Our flagship project is called the Mount Chalmers Copper and Gold Mine, which you can see in the background here. And as I'm sure you're well aware, that the case for copper is very strong. Demand is rising on the back of copper being an energy transition metal, a very vital one at that. And you've probably heard Goldman Sachs say there's no energy transition without copper. So copper is very key to this transition. And so we've also know that we're starting to change not only the energy networks and how we're using power and how we're actually living day to day, but also the sort of cars we're driving. Everyone's heard about this transition from fossil fuel internal combustion cars to electric vehicles, and we know that on average the average EV car consumes about four times the amount of copper that the average internal combustion engine does. So it's a very important part of this energy transition. Our mine, as you can see there, is very close to the coast. It's just out of the town of Rockhampton in Queensland, and it's an existing mine. You can see it in the background there. And it's important to note here that as well as a very strong demand outlook, for copper, it's actually happening at a time when we're starting to see really constrained supply. Okay, and for those of you who don't know, a lot of the copper mined in the world comes from 2 countries in South America called Chile and Peru, and that represents about 40% of the world's supply. And as you may have read, there are major challenges with getting that copper to market, with getting a workforce up into the Andes where most of those mines are, social issues with dealing with the local community and so on and so forth. So as we get through the presentation today, you'll see that we really see this this social license to operate is becoming a very important part of getting these mines, or getting the copper out of the ground in a sustainable way, and meeting those sort of challenges that we have ahead. So what are we doing in a practical sense? Okay, so as I say, we're only a small cap business, but we're just in the process of installing our third solar system on site. So the site is completely off-grid from a power perspective. We've got quite an extensive battery backup system and a small wind turbine up on site, which is running all the day-to-day operations. We've actually bought up 5 rural blocks or rural farms across the actual mine site, which has been really critical in terms of allowing us to install these sort of systems to decarbonise our business. And thanks to Simon and Refueling Solutions, support and advice, we've now using a B20 blend for our drilling, our trucks, our generators on site. So we're starting to look at these renewable fuels, and we'll look to improve on those blends as we go. We're using rainwater for all our drinking, for all our washing of clothes. We're using pit water for our drilling. We're really trying to recycle, reuse, and repurpose as much stuff as we can. And an important part, and I think this is actually quite critical to how businesses can transition. We need to think about local. We all hear about the mining industry and this fly-in, fly-out workforce. That in my mind is something we need to change. Carting people across the country, to go and work on mine sites, is obviously a big cause of a lot of these emissions. So we've really put a big emphasis within our business on trying to hire local and trying to procure local, and that's really reducing our carbon footprint. So. And that sort of leads into this next slide here, that social is becoming a very important part of how the mining industry actually grows their business. You would have seen a lot of recently in the news, a lot of mines, particularly greenfield sites, the mines actually not getting approvals, and that's largely because they don't have this what we call a social license to operate. And so by engaging with the community, we're doing a number of things. We're doing a lot of environmental monitoring on site. We've now actually got, we're trying to digitise a lot of these processes. So would you believe we've now got data loggers at a number of points across the site where we can look at things like the vibration from our drilling and how that's affecting community. Noise is obviously a big one for the local community. Dust, all those sort of things, so that we can act really quickly if we're not being responsible corporate citizens up in that region. And that's, I think, really helping us to build a really good relationship with the regulators and the authorities in the region, but also our local communities. So I think you'll see more of this real time data logging and whatnot as time goes on as part of these ESG initiatives. Okay, so on the governance side, as a business, we're really trying to lead from the front. It was really nice to hear Simon, talk about his kids, and I'm obviously a young chairman and have 2 young kids of my own. So all these different strategies are very important in terms of I think leaving a good legacy for the next generations. In terms of governance, it's another important part of our business is actually communicating effectively with our shareholders and our staff and other constituents in our business. And so that independence and transparency is a really important part of that communication and building trust with those other groups. We have a number of quite a strong corporate governance focus, even though we are a small cap business. I think we've got 10 different policies and procedures, which I've read ad nauseum, and we've got fantastic representatives on our board who have very strong corporate governance expertise, which have really been helping us with this. Diversity and inclusion is a big part of how we like to run the business. We've got very capable women from the top of our organisation right through, and they're doing a fantastic job within our business. We've got all sorts of different age groups, nationalities, genders on our work site, and it's fantastic to see them all working so well together. And I think this is a lot of this is actually really important in terms of how we manage risk as a business. Governance is a big part of that, and also the environmental and social side of these initiatives are very important in terms of managing risk and ensuring that we add value for our shareholders in a risk-adjusted way. So we see governance as a very important part of that. And I suppose the last point I would make, to wrap things up, is that we believe that these brownfield sites, and by brownfields I mean that sites have already been mined, like Mount Chalmers, have a lot more, I suppose, a lot more chance of actually getting mined and developed. There's no point in digging up a new site and destroying new ecological areas and so on and so forth. So we also see that underground mines are going to be a bigger part of how the mining industry reduces its impact on the earth going forward, and so we're looking at some initiatives around that to minimise how we impact the land up here. But I will say that this is a shallow, high-grade ore body, which is actually quite important because it means that we have to process less tonnes. It means we have to dig up less tonnes to get and disturb the earth to get the same sort of metals output. So that and having a strong metallurgy is really important, I think, and will become more important in terms of how much carbon businesses emit as a ratio to how much copper, gold, lead, and zinc they're actually producing. So, and as I said, this is a historic producing mine, so we think that we'll have a lot more success here, developing this mine and reducing the impact, of mining in a site like this, which is certainly a brownfield site. So look, that gives you a quick insight into some of the different initiatives that we're delivering as a business. There's a lot more to come on this front. As I say, we're very proud of the fact that we're only one of 3 listed resources companies that's certified carbon neutral, even though we're a smaller business. And I will say, as you can see, that the technologies are very well known. We can deliver these sorts of strategies cost effectively. If anyone wants to talk about the costs, we're happy to have a chat offline, but it's really, I think these are very achievable today. So let's all work together to try and, progress our businesses as sustainably as we can today and not tomorrow. Thanks very much for your time, everyone.
Well, good afternoon. My name's Ben Artup. I'm your next speaker. I'm from Bundaberg Regional Council, and we're, I guess, a small council trying to do big things in the bioenergy space. And what I want to do today is just give you an overview of 2 projects that we're working on in our region. I'm the token local government representative on the panel today, so you get to hear from me. And I want to talk about our biohub, but also some work we're doing in the hydrogen space in our region that we think is quite innovative. I guess firstly, the Bundaberg Biohub. You might have heard of the Bundaberg Biohub. It's been listed on the state government's bioenergy map, and that's an aerial picture of it there about 3 years ago. And you might be thinking, well, that just looks like council's old wastewater treatment plant, and that's mainly because it is council's old wastewater treatment plant that we were able to transfer that asset in 2019 to the private sector, to Utilitas Group, who you may know. And before that, we did a lot of due diligence on what to do with that asset. And at the end of the day, we were approached by Utilitas, who saw the opportunity to transform this piece of infrastructure and use a lot of that infrastructure as part of a biohub vision. And the benefit of that, one thing for council, if nothing else, it saved us about $1.2 million that we would have had to spend to make that safe and remediate it back to a park or a piece of industrial land or some other community purpose. But we're able to sell it at a very low price for the benefit of developing a biohub in partnership with the private sector. But what it's doing now is it's attracting tens of millions of dollars of funding and money from the market into energy and bioproduct companies that are establishing at the biohub, which I'll go through, and also one green hydrogen project that we're working on. So that's it there. There's the launch. We launched it in October 2020. That's our mayor, and that's Fiona Waterhouse, who you may know, the late Fiona Waterhouse, who sadly passed away last year. But it was really her vision to establish the biohub in Bundaberg, and a vision for this to be one of the first of 100 biohubs across Australia. That she was really responsible in the energy and the momentum, and we knew Fiona, who got this vision started and off the ground in Bundaberg. We were concerned with the passing of Fiona, that the vision and the passion may dissipate. That's not the case. So the Utilitas group is sophisticated enough now and is driving forward with many of the projects that Fiona envisioned in her lifetime. And there's a bit of an artist's impression of what some of the tenancies of the biohub are starting to look like. So some of the tenancies there, the biohub that have been established, there's 6 listed there. The Utilitas also has facilities there in biomethane. They've done some demonstration stuff around biomethane and electricity production. There's a Nev House company there that's being established, and they're looking at completely sustainable, zero carbon prefab buildings for parts of the world where you can build small accommodation for different types of uses around the world. That's being established there. Biohydrogen company, Recarbon Incorporated, is a California-based company who's working with us on biohydrogen or green hydrogen manufacturing from the biohub at the moment. There's a waste-to-energy company that's set up there, Yield 3D. There's also a green data centre, a green crypto data centre in the top there in the pink area. That's got DA approval, and operational works have started on that facility, and they've made their second, I think, ASX announcement on the investment going into that facility. And then there's other smaller stuff. Council, we've still got a small presence there for doing water testing, and some of our technicians that are sort of working on site with the other tenancies. But very, very quick overview. Pulling all that together is Utilitas. So we are working with Utilitas, and we bring investors through this biohub every second week to look at other investment opportunities into space there at the biohub. What Utilitas is already also doing is very, very important work in terms of aggregating the demand for feedstock and bio-waste and other solids in partnership with our farmers and our manufacturers in the region to identify how we can move waste products from our agricultural community. We're one of the largest agricultural growing regions in Australia with a lot of waste lying around, and what we can do with that. And they're working out the local techno-economic opportunities to move that feedstock and those products to the biohub for use in some of those tenancies that you've seen previously. So looking at and they've got a whole range of investment memorandums around that that they're putting to farmers and developing the capacity for that feedstock and the bio-waste that we need for the fuel and the other products that they're making, currently starting to make at the biohub. So they're looking in industrial wastes for anaerobic digestion, solid waste for thermal processing, behind-the-meter electricity, biofertilisers in the region. It's a big opportunity for our agricultural sector, and biogas for the electrification and hydrogen production. They're also working with our waste facilities. Anything we can avoid going to land waste that's green, avoids the environmental levy potentially that we need to pay. So there's a benefit there for council to look at diverting some of that waste to here for use in the development of these products. So when I tell the story around, it's not just about the bioeconomy, it's about jobs essentially for our region. It's about energy and food security longer term, having a strategy there, but how we create jobs. And if you know some of the big job creators in our region, you know Bundy Sugar, a household name which, 140 years old, waste product, molasses right next to the mill, and when you've got a lot of molasses lying around, what do you make? Rum, and that's another iconic brand, Bundaberg rum, which everybody knows. And then Utilitas being the future of the biohub. In terms of the biohydrogen, we set up a cluster to explore hydrogen, and this group, led by Utilitas and others, put these two consortiums together, one with Utilitas and Recarbon to make biohydrogen, and another consortium with Heywood and Superior Pack. And Superior Pack happened to be the largest manufacturer of garbage trucks in Australia, based in Bundaberg, and they've partnered with Heywood to produce hydrogen garbage trucks for the council. So what council's looking at doing in this space is purchasing or leasing 2 of these hydrogen garbage trucks, and also purchasing the hydrogen from the Utilitas Recarbon Consortium based at the Biohub. It's an ambitious project relying upon some grants, and I guess it's a gutsy project for the council to look at, to swap out 2 of our diesel garbage trucks for biohydrogen garbage trucks over time, which is what we're looking at doing at the moment, which came out of all this work with Utilitas and the cluster. So I think my time's up. Very, very quick.
All right. My name's Adrian Cook. I'm from Carnarvon Energy. Something a little bit different. Our heritage is in oil and gas. No rotten tomatoes, that's good. We've made a decision that we actually see the transition as an opportunity. There's plenty of challenges there, and I think Lisa's presentation today was fantastic in saying that we can all work through the challenges, but the opportunities we think are fantastic. When we think about our business, I guess we gave a lot of thought to the user, the customer. So it's actually been quite satisfying today to hear from the customers around the sorts of things that they're after. So in terms of particularly mobility products, reliable supply, cost, lower carbon footprint. So for us, that's great, given this is the journey we're on. This is a chart from the International Energy Agency on renewable diesel consumption, that in 2020, consumption's around 10 billion litres per year, with a projection that in 5 years' time that will reach threefold, so 30 billion litres per year, which sounds like a lot, and that's, I think for us, is what's particularly attractive about this industry. But I think, as Mike earlier today said, this is potentially a dot-com opportunity before us right now. And I say that in the context of 30 billion litres by 2026. Put that in comparison to how much oil we use every year, and that's 6 trillion litres every year. So the opportunity to punch above 30 billion, I think, is substantial. So just to give a quick little oversight into Carnarvon and how we've come from a heritage of oil and gas to a future where we see, certainly initially, in the renewable space. And in 2018 and 19, we made some fairly large oil and gas discoveries offshore Western Australia. That really put our minds to the test initially about how will we offset the emissions profiles from the production. Will we just simply buy paper credits? That didn't feel like it was good enough. Will we maybe grow some trees and do nature-based sequestration? We thought we could do better. That took us on the journey to where we are today, and that's a collaboration with the Frontier Impact Group. And really, in my mind, it's bringing a yin and yang together with Jennifer Luber-Patterson's team, who really know this space very well, together with the benefits that something like Carnarvon brings. We know construction of large plants. We know how to operate large plants. And as you'll see in the next slide, bringing on the oil and gas production will give a capital base that will let Jennifer and myself and our teams really make a meaningful contribution from renewable fuel supply. Now, we fast forward only 1 year, and as you'll see in the next couple of slides, our first project is well on the way out in Narrogin in Western Australia, and we have a pipeline now of projects targeting 20 through regional Western Australia with quite, I think, an ambitious target in terms of our supply objectives. They're the ambitions. What we're working tangibly to right now is the final investment decisions, firstly for our oil field, and I'll show you on the next slide why that's important to the renewable diesel story. But secondly, we are making great progress on our first renewable diesel plant, and it's looking incredibly attractive and exciting for us and our business. So our vision by 2030 is to be producing sustainably 500 million litres per annum of renewable diesel. That will be in Western Australia, and you can see on the map there the sorts of indications of the location of the 20 sites that we are working up, with our first site in blue being Narrogin. That's going to require quite some investment. At this point, our estimate is $3 billion. And this is where the production of our oil fields, which on the chart below we map out in red. So we will bring our oil field into production in 26. It'll generate most of its cash flow by early 2030. We will have that cash flow then to invest into these 20 plants, the $3 billion. And as you can see in that production chart on the bottom there, our vision is the production of renewable diesel will be in the future equal to or greater than what we currently have ahead of us in terms of the production of oil. We also, as I've said here, have aspirations around taking renewable diesel and enhancing it into sustainable aviation fuel. So it was good to hear some of the conversations this morning around the importance of that in this country. And a pet favourite of mine is around taking secondary products from our processing of biochar and turning it into high-quality graphene for, I hope, batteries of the future. So this 3D image is of our first plant in Narrogin. We are well on track to hit our final investment decision late this year. Carnarvon's covering those costs. We are also buying this land. It's 10 times the land that we need for the plant. One of the reasons for doing that is that we're going to use this for a real showcase for the potential. Both for the production of renewable diesel, but also the use of secondary products around biochar and wood vinegar on the land. A lot of work's going into this project. Our engineering design work is nearly complete. Our approval processes with the government are well in train. The fuel's being tested. I've been incredibly excited about the interest that we've been receiving. Jennifer's known all along what this opportunity is to produce and supply renewable diesel. We're cottoning on, and we absolutely believe there's a great business to supply this product. And I think there was a bit of a joke around whether Mike's production will be on ahead of our production. We're aiming for late 23, so you know, it's going to be a good race. But I think the message from my perspective is that I think what's more important is we actually collaborate. I think what we hear the customers are after, you know, is quantum and reliability of supply, and that means us all working together to make this a success. Another area, and this is sort of a philosophical one, and Mike raised it also this morning, is just around feedstock and the draw off the land for food. Philosophically, our focus is going to be more around drawing waste wood products. We've already secured our first major supply contract, which will be waste wood stumps. That's kind of where we see the opportunity and what we like about having a large number of regionally placed plants near the feedstock. We also see the opportunity to very, very carefully to plant trees such as oil mallees, particularly through the wheat belt, which is an area that we're very focused on, and working with farmers around how to make that beneficial for everything that they do, but also what we're looking to do. So I'm just watching my time here. Hurry up. There are plenty of challenges. I think there are plenty of opportunities as well. From our perspective, we bring both that sort of the understanding of the oil and gas as a traditional supply of energy that we're using, together with this future opportunity. I think the costs are going to be a challenge, more so, strangely enough, because of where I think oil prices are going. Lower emissions, of course, that's what we're all here to hear and focus on and drive actions to achieve. And hopefully you're getting a sense that here's an oil company working collaboratively with people in this room to make this a reality. And as has been raised earlier today, I think we need support, particularly out of the government, for the customers, but also for us as producers. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Simon Marr. I'm the Managing Director of Marr Contracting, and I'm just going to talk to you about what we're actually doing at the moment and how we're transitioning to renewable diesel. How does that work? Oh, okay. So we are a third generation crane hire business. We provide lifting solutions mainly around tower cranes. We operate globally and we operate in a bunch of different sectors. So high-rise construction, both commercial, residential. We do a lot of infrastructure work around, particularly at the moment, around metro stations. You'll see some of our cranes here in Brisbane working on the Cross River Rail. And we work in power generation, both nuclear, waste to energy, and we have done thermal coal over the years as well. So I suppose our journey to net zero. We started off with going through a social impact study in 2021, and I suppose one of the main focuses that came out of that was how we reduce our environmental impact. And our goal was to understand our greenhouse gas emissions and then implement a solution to that based on science. And the action for us we took out of it was to transition to a renewable or sustainable power source. So we sort of challenged ourselves and we looked at a bunch of different options. And we really see HVO 100, which is not a biofuel, as a sustainable option over electrification of our fleet. And there's a real reason behind this. Sustainability is also about productivity. I think this is a really great photo of a project we've just completed in Turkey. It is the world's largest suspension bridge. It goes across the Dardanelles. It spans from Gallipoli across to Lepseki. So it spans across from Europe into Asia. It's over 4 kilometres long. And we were asked by the client to look at helping them reduce their timeframes on the project. And our focus was really on building these towers that support the bridge. And the towers are 320 metres high. There is no way in the world you could build these towers with the current technology around electric cranes. It just does not work. And so what we did was we used some of our specialised equipment. We've got these cranes, which are the largest capacity tower cranes in the world. We deployed 2 of them, we integrated them into the project, and we drove a really successful outcome for our client, which was delivering the project some 18 months ahead of schedule. And that's something you really don't hear very much about, especially in infrastructure projects these days. But we did it through deploying the right equipment to the project. And so I think that when we're talking about sustainability, we've got to look at it from the many dimensions that sit there behind sustainability. And I think from a craneage point of view, what we keep coming back to is that the current fleet of cranes that we operate are the most sustainable cranes for the kind of work that we do. There's definitely a place for electric cranes, and there's electrification of our industry is fantastic, that's great. But we've got to make sure that we get the mix right, and we shouldn't do it. We shouldn't be pushed down a path where we're chasing an outcome without actually understanding what the flip side of that is, which can be lost productivity. And an unproductive site isn't a sustainable site. And we have a negative impact on the environment by doing that. In New South Wales, the last 12 months, these are figures that have come out from the energy regulator, 79% of the power that comes out of New South Wales at the moment, of the last 12 months, was coming out of fossil fuel generation. Now, obviously, we're building that capacity around wind and other hydro solar, that is all increasing as well, but we're still heavily reliant on fossil fuels. In Queensland, the number's higher than that. So for us, moving towards electrification of our fleet was not the answer, because we're still drawing power off an electric grid which is really heavily reliant on fossil fuels. The transition to renewable diesel. So we've taken our existing fleet. We're about to import, it's actually on the water at the moment, the first batch of HVO 100 fuel that's coming into Australia. And we will be the first business to actually start running this. So by the end of July, we're going to have this running in our fleet. It's just pour straight into the cranes and away we go. We've got clients on board such as Lease who are joining us in this journey. Multiplex, the main players across the industry are all very excited about it, and they're going to support us as we transition through. The important thing that we see out of this is the zero emissions we get out the back end of it from the life cycle of the fuel. The fuel's coming from Neste in Europe. It's fantastic to hear today that we're getting capacity here in Australia. That's exactly what we want. I mean, I really see that us as a business is the tip of the wedge here, in that we, as a crane provider, we use very small amounts of fuel, but we can use our cranes as virtually a beacon to the industry to hold it up there and say that here's a private business that's leading the way towards sustainability, and we can be pointing towards that and getting others to follow us, which is fantastic. The fuel's coming from 100% renewable materials. It's reducing the carbon footprint. You know, obviously we've talked about this previously, 90% reduction compared to fossil fuels. And the important thing is that we can just tip it straight into our existing fleet. In the case of Neste renewable diesels, we talk about it being circulating through the ecosystem. So the fuel's obviously, the feedstock's obviously grown, it goes through a process, comes out as the HVO 100, we tip it into our machines, we use it. The emissions that do come back out go back again to feed the feedstock that's being used to produce the fuel, as opposed to current fossil fuel, which are just going straight up into the environment. So I think the main thing for us now is getting support from the industry. I think this is a really great moment for us as an industry in construction, that there's a way to change here. There's a pathway to change to a more sustainable future. One of the things that feedback we've got obviously is around the cost of the fuel. And yes, it is expensive. It's sort of double the cost of fossil fuel diesel. But for us as a business, we're not seeing this so much as a challenge because, again, we use very small amounts of fuel. And I think over time, as we've talked about here today, the cost of the fuel is going to come down as we get more production here in Australia. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Stephen Lincoln, Group Manager of Equipment Compliance and Product Development at Coates. Just a little bit of history behind us. We started our transition to a much greener world a few years ago, where we released a biodiesel policy back in 2021, and then we've just recently launched what we're calling a Greener Choices brochure or catalogue to allow our customers, and our customers are the Tier 1 builders and constructors of Australia, the events organisations that are running major events throughout the world, throughout Australia, and we see as our job to actually support them in doing things in a much better position. So our experience with biofuel over the last few years has been, as you all know here, there's been a requirement, and at times very much we wanted to supply biodiesel or direct people to where they could get biodiesel, and that's been very difficult. We've dealt with the lack of acceptance of engine manufacturers, and some are still transitioning to accept greater blends of biodiesel. the supply chain limitations is basically then seen as a lack of confidence in the industry. So, you know, if you said, how could we improve things? Well, we've put in a policy that of where people can get biodiesel from, but it's the supply chain that we need to support these big constructors to get on with using better fuel. As I just spoke about, it's a boom or bust industry as it's been seen, but it appears very much from today that this is a turning point that the industry should take advantage of and allow the end users to get the fuel as much as they can get. We also have asked ourselves, what can we do? We thought we had to educate some of our customers, you know, remove the risk in using biodiesel in equipment, and we run all sorts of equipment, you know, from small power tools up to multi-megawatt power stations and access equipment and all that. So we've gone through all of our products and pointed out to our customers what they can use it in and take full advantage of it. We also gave them a bit of an understanding what biodiesel is and what blends are acceptable. Whoops, forgot to change. Sorry. That was basically what I just discussed. The next slide this is the policy we put out to everybody, the industry. Basically, with the basic information about, you know, what is blended biofuel, can you put biofuel in our equipment, where can I purchase biofuel from, and hopefully we've also put some products into our fleet to make the storage of biofuel on construction sites easier. We've put in solar-powered dispensing units on trailers for local distribution, just again to support the industry. We've also been challenging our suppliers and asking them, not unlike in your cars, to actually nominate the percentage of biofuel that can be used on the equipment. So the picture up there at the moment is a generator, and it has a B20 biodiesel compatible label at the filler neck. So we're trying to get that put in all of our machines wherever we buy our equipment from. That happens to be an FG Wilson machine who's owned by Caterpillar. Coates' vision is to be the market leader in safe, smart and sustainable equipment solutions. And we work in the circular economy, and our framework is behind the 5 key pillars of our people, our communities, resilience, eco-efficiency and greener choices. The greener choices part is where we see we can get benefits in our access equipment, lighting, site accommodation, materials handling, general hire tools, and traffic management. The solutions we're offering our customers is the use of biodiesel, water treatment, drones and digital twins, Internet of Things, smart sites, electrification of battery electric equipment, and we think other emerging technologies such as hydrogen. I think the issue of hydrogen, I'd like to bet myself here that we're always going to need combustion engines. Hydrogen is going to be a little bit like the biofuel industry, unless the logistics of getting biofuel to where it's needed, when it's needed. And the other thing is we're going to need that combustion engines to get the kilowatts, the large kilowatts available to operate big equipment where battery systems, electrified battery systems aren't going to work. So what's Coates' greener choice? It's a range of products that reduce emissions and improve efficiencies. In our hybrid equipment, we've got access equipment, light towers, hybrid generators, hybrid access equipment, small tools and equipment, demolition saws, all being transitioned to battery electric. Our lighting space has actually had a lot of growth, where we've got a lot of solar lighting towers, hybrid lighting towers, and I spoke about the fuel trailers. We've also been on a journey for a number of years with off-highway diesel engines, where we started buying emission-controlled engines in the industrial space probably up to 5 years ago. And of recent, we've actually just started introducing Tier 4 final, EU Stage 4 and Stage 5 emission-compliant engines. Our portable buildings also work in conjunction with the Responsible Construction Leadership Group, and that's all about insulations and all sorts of other bits and pieces like that. 2 weeks ago, we did actually take the delivery of the first Stage 5 emission-controlled telehandler in Australia, and we were pretty happy to see that, and we might see it on one of Abby's sites very shortly, hopefully. And also what we've done is to mark our equipment, that if you're hiring equipment from us with the Greener Choices logo, as you can see, any of those products that have those benefits we're going to mark, and you might see that the circular arrow there, the broken dots indicate that we're really on the start of this journey and it's going to evolve even further in the future, and that's what we come up with. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to all of you for that. It was incredibly insightful and a lot to unpack, and obviously I'll just get you all to come up and we'll have a short Q&A session to kick off with. So one of the things that I've noticed, and certainly I think the construction sector has been incredibly successful in leveraging this collaboration. So in the sense that we've got principal contractors, contractors themselves, and also equipment hire companies coming together to be able to deliver green and renewable solutions. I guess it's also great to see, Simon, your business as well in doing some great things overseas. So it's a great testament to what we can do in Australia. But I thought I'd just start by asking and just some thoughts in terms of, as we've all gone on these journeys, and almost feel like a bit of a proud father, because there has been a lot of work from Refueling Solutions to understand and have some fantastic, authentic conversations with most of you in being able to get these initiatives off the ground. But when you've started to achieve this, I'd be interested in knowing how that actually has transpired in your business in terms of the engagement with staff, I guess, and what that has looked like in a cultural sort of aspect, but also then how that then translates into perhaps the stakeholders, so and potential business opportunities that's delivered. Yeah.
I think for us, I think we've sort of looked at this for a while now and thought, are we approaching our Kodak moment, where the industry, we could see the industry was changing, and we've definitely seen more of it from our international business. Our London office in particular seems to be miles ahead of us in that sector, in the construction and generally through the UK around sustainability. And so I think that we were getting noise here in Australia as well about what were we doing about becoming more of a sustainable business. So we really took some time to go back, step back and have a good look at it. And as I said, in my talk, it was looking at all the different dimensions that sort of sit behind sustainability. And power supply for us, the source of power that we needed to drive our cranes was, we really had to understand that. And we did look at electric, we looked at hydrogen, we looked at biofuel, and we saw this emergence of this renewable diesel, especially in the UK market, and we just went, wow, this is it. This is potentially something that we can now introduce into our fleet that sort of fills a gap, because it is a journey. When no one's there yet, we've got a long way to go, and I think that this is something that buys us some time to get to the next stage, and it might be battery-powered cranes in the future. The batteries might get small enough, I don't know. Technology will evolve, but at the moment where we are, this is a great solution for us, and what we need is the industry to support us to drive this through.
Thank you. Adrian, do you want to have
a crack?
A crack at the question?
I think as an oil and gas company, the decision to move away from that space has been quite an Everest decision for us. We're public listed, we have shareholders who are invested, particularly for the oil and gas opportunity. We have board management staff who are all deeply experienced and trained in oil and gas. So That step has been quite a big one for us. I think for us it's a little bit around the great example of you with your 5-year-old daughter. You know, what do we want the world to look like, you know, when our children are older? What do the customers want? You know, the more we sort of tested that, the more we realised that, you know, it's important for the customers to have this type of product. And then we sort of had to think about and get worried about what do we do well and what do we not know? Where are our gaps? Which is where I think collaboration becomes really important here. And you know, Jennifer Luber-Patterson's team. So I can't emphasise enough just how complementary they are to our skills to turn the vision now into a reality. So yeah, it's been, so I can't understate the Everest moment for us to broaden the opportunity, but we are there now. We've made the decision. We're invested both capital, commitment, and people now to make this a success.
Fantastic, thank you. Abigail, did you?
Right. So, as some of you may or may not be aware, Lend-Lease has been on a very significant carbon journey. It started with our commitment for TCFD, the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure, which we signed up to a couple of years ago. So that feeds into the investment side of things and our investment customers. We obviously have our bold targets, which are industry leading in the construction industry for absolute zero by 2040. So we touched on that before in the previous session about not wanting to offset forever. So we're working towards absolute zero. That has been a journey on that. We don't know how we're going to solve all of those aspects, but we're definitely on this journey with our supply chain, particularly around, you know, concrete, aluminium, steel, obviously diesel. So we are on that journey. So for that, for the fossil fuel-free offerings that we're talking about, I have colleagues that thank me for the opportunity to be involved in those. That's not, I feel a bit unfair accepting that, but the culture within the company is that people want to do this and they're pleased that they're working for a company that values this and they want to be leading the industry. And I guess for me personally, I've been in sustainability for coming up for 20 years, and what excites me is we finally stopped talking about the why. Why do we need to do this? And what really excites me, and coming back to what you're saying with the solutions, is we don't know the solutions, but now we can get on with it, which is the bit I'm excited for, the how. How do we do this? How do we actually get to absolute zero? So it has been a journey, and for the business and our employees.
Thank you.
I'd just like to support Abby, what she said about the employees. I'd say since we've released our Greener Solutions information, the support from our people has been, the feedback has been first class. You know, they want it, they want to hear it, they want to know our company's doing something about it. And that goes back to, again, for the kids in the future and all that. So that's come back very fast and very clear from our people. So I think it's a good thing.
Absolutely. I've certainly the change, and as you mentioned, Abigail, from the why to why not, and then having industry leaders start actually acting on these initiatives has a tremendous draw through, I think, for the rest of the sectors. And ultimately, I guess where we get to now is just ensuring we have that collaboration. And as we've seen, there's tremendous pent-up demand for renewables. So we've just got to get you guys producing very, very quickly. Andrew, I just want to ask a quick question of you. I was just looking at your LinkedIn the other day, and one of the things that says, and congratulations on your achievement as a net zero miner, but they say sustainability is the logical new battleground for Aussie miners. How is that going to sort of play out, and what sort of challenges do you think some of the bigger cap guys will have?
Yeah, look, thanks, Simon. Look, it's obviously challenging. Mining has been, historically seen as a dirty business, and so it's a challenge. I think the industry is sort of moving forward on, which is great. But I see it more as an opportunity. You know, it's an opportunity to differentiate your business. It's an opportunity to build better relationships with the local community around your mine sites, or with your regulators, and hopefully, you know, improve the process or streamline the process in terms of getting these mines back into production. But also, it's an opportunity that's very important in terms of this whole transition, because without a lot of these critical metals, you know, we can't make this transition. And you know, so you know, I think for the first time, actually, the mining industry is starting to use this to get more of a voice. When it's, as I mentioned, it has been seen as quite a dirty industry. And I see it as very much an opportunity to start to, you know, renew the business, renew the thinking, start to attract some younger people and some different sort of ideals and you know, into the business. So yeah, I share what the panel is saying. It is an exciting time, and but going back to your question, I think we're quite lucky in that we're a relatively new business, and we're growing the business from a small start. So it is easier to, being candid, to decarbonise the business, but for larger businesses that have already got lots of infrastructure in place, you know, and some of the groups on the panel, I'm sure there's some very big challenges, you know, and it's great to see, you know, many of these businesses, you know, taking it on firsthand. So, you know, but it's not easy to, you know, to decarbonise a business that's been in operation for a long time and got lots of, you know, plant and equipment out there that's already using fossil fuels, as an example. So look, it will take time, and it's challenging, but it's exciting, and I think it's, you know, I see it as a real competitive advantage and a way to differentiate your business and get more traction out there. So it's you know, it's an exciting evolution.
Thanks, Andrew, for that. I appreciate it. Ben, just a quick one for yourself. I was yesterday at this Sustainability in Government conference, and I saw firsthand from a range of both local and state, well, New South Wales state government particularly, just in terms of the momentum that is building and the excitement to be able to get to these net zero outcomes. How is that translating in terms of your community engagement?
Yeah, we've set a net zero target as an organisation and for our region to be achieved. We've got an ambitious target to achieve net zero by 2040 for our region. I think our shareholders are actually ratepayers who often can be very vocal to the council when we're setting targets like this. You know, we are in regional Queensland where climate change isn't universally accepted sometimes, but so we get parochialism and we get feedback that can be quite critical of council, you know, getting onto things like hydrogen and biohubs and investing ratepayer funds in exploring these types of opportunities. But I guess the council over time has come a long way in terms of accepting that we need to play a role as the third tier of government in Australia, that everybody's got a role, and even local government has to play a role in achieving, you know, a decarbonised economy and world over time. So it's been an interesting path in terms of working with the community, but it's getting better. You know, when I was here 3 years ago for this conference, it was a lot different conversation I would have said back then than now in terms of where the community's acceptance is for council getting involved in these types of things.
Yeah, certainly get a sense that there's an increased expectation on deliverables in that space. I just thought now I might just throw it out to the audience if there's any questions for the panel. No? Okay. No.
Michael Van Baal from Able Energy. I was in Launceston a few days ago, and there was an inversion, and I noticed the pollution from the wood fires and the vehicles quite bad. Hits a certain level and then stops, and you've got this inversion layer. And I was just wondering, there was a lot of focus, particularly I think with say for Abigail and to some extent Simon and Stephen, about working in urban environments and burning fuels. Wasn't that long ago we were concerned about NOx and particulates and things, and I was just wondering how the whole greenhouse gas juxtapositions with pollutants, and whether there's a solution beyond just electric batteries and so forth to deal with that pollution issue as well as the greenhouse gas issue.
That actually raises a really good point about the benefits of decarbonising and our pollution. You know, we will have better air quality for that. So my understanding with the greenhouse gases is we do have better air quality and less particulates from the renewable fuels. So we already experienced that with biodiesel, and that will be the same, is my understanding, with renewable diesel. So yeah, it's win-win-win, right? Like, who doesn't want cleaner air quality in their cities? Who doesn't want the health benefits? And that also feeds into our clients as well. You know, we work on hospitals, so, you know, that's a stakeholder who is very interested in us polluting less when we construct.
Thank you.
I guess from our perspective, you know, when we were sort of looking at what the future potentially is in terms of energy supply, the train has left the station, I think, in terms of fossil fuels, and we're looking for better energy supplies. But hopefully the improvements just continue, and I guess whether it's electric, whether it's hydrogen, whether it's something else that today we don't know about, I think we've got to keep this momentum going. It's not just carbon; it's some of the pollutions that you talk about. But the opportunity is fantastic now. As I said, I think the train's left the station, the conversations are on, the actions are happening, and I think it's pretty exciting with what's available to us today, but the things that we don't know about today that will be the future.
Thought I might just add that in Australia at the moment we don't have an emission control for off-highway diesel engines, and that's probably something that we should have. And now I'm not the expert in this area, but I believe the Tier 4 final Stage 5 engines actually do a filtering job in the combustion process of cleaning air as well. So that could be seen as a small benefit. But yes, the more cleaner burning engines and replace the older ones, I think that's something that we're lacking that we could improve on.
Fantastic, thank you. I think just time for another one or two questions. Yes.
Hi, Chris Tyndall with the Commercial Aviation Alternative Fuels Initiative. This question's for Adrian. I was just curious, I know you mentioned renewable diesel and you kind of mentioned maybe doing SAF in the future. We're just curious what your pathway process is and if it's ASTM approved and how soon we might be able to get some SAF.
Right. Did I mention the yin and the yang with our partner? So one of the things that Jennifer's team is really sort of dragging Carnarvon full speed into this potential. It's clearly a fantastic opportunity in a space that's hard to decarbonise. From Carnarvon's perspective, we come from more that prudent, conservative perspective. For our particularly our first plant, our feeling is let's make sure it's successful, both technically and commercially, so that we can then justify more. We know the technology that we're looking at can then cater for a couple of those extension products such as SAF and biochar refining to graphene. So I think we will get there quickly once we are through our first plant. So really that, I think, Jennifer, late 23, our first plant into production. I think 24 is when we really start putting our minds to how we move into product delivery such as SAF. So hopefully that's a bit of a yin and the yang answer. As I said, we're dragging along. We recognise the opportunity is fantastic. We also recognise that there have been many startups that have failed as well into this space, and we don't want to be one of those. We want to make sure that when we start, it's going to be a success.
Thank you. I think that'll run out of time for the session, but wanted to thank, obviously, Stephen, Simon, Adrian, Ben, Abigail and Andrew for their participation and sharing that journey. I think it's important that we can use that and to build the momentum, and that's certainly, I think we all agree, we can see that things are starting to come together, and it's a very exciting time and positioned, poised for greatness, I would like to think. The next thing we have is lunch will be served on the terrace, And if, whilst that's happening, also let you know that Lisa Blair, her books have turned up. An hour, okay. Yeah. So there is a limited supply, so first in, best dressed, and throwing in a free signature. But yeah, so aside from that, thank you all very, very much. We'll see you back in the terrace by 1:30 this afternoon. Thank you. Thank you.